Today we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial process, how to create a successful product or service. Before jumping right into how to come up with an idea and cultivate that idea into a viable product or service, I think it's critically important to first dig deep into the problem that you're trying to solve for your customers. Many entrepreneurs start with the solution and have a sense of the problem they are solving, but don't really dig deep into the customer-related aspects of the problem. When initially screening your idea for business viability, you really need to answer these questions. Is this an important problem for the customer? Is the customer desperate to solve this problem? Is my idea vastly superior to the alternative ways the problem is being addressed today? Great entrepreneurs start with the problem they're trying to solve, and only then propose a unique and creative solution. The difference is both subtle and dramatic. If your idea doesn't have value to a customer, if someone's not willing to pay for it, then obviously you can't build a business around it. Your idea must have a unique value proposition, and that value must be grounded in a customer need. Any kind of market that's attractive, even if you're the first company to have a solution based on your idea, will attract competition. If you're addressing a small niche market that doesn't offer much opportunity, you might not get any competition. But that also means that you're not attacking a very attractive market opportunity. If you're going after a big market opportunity, what is your competitive advantage? And is it sustainable? Now let's talk a little bit about the importance of idea refinement. You might have a great idea, but having a feedback loop based on interaction with customers in your target market will help you refine your idea and thus make it even more valuable. So let's look at sources for business ideas. I've hunted around and found some practical sources for business ideas. Strangely enough, one of the best is on practicalbusinessideas.com. I think it's a really good list. Like a miner that is searching for gold, as an entrepreneur, you want to mine your experience for creative and valuable business ideas. For an idea to be great and for you to be the right entrepreneur to implement it, you'll want to do something where there is an intersection of your domain knowledge, your passion, and a unique value proposition to a customer. Successful people are typically very observant. They look at their world and ask, what problems exist out there? Do I have specialized knowledge that can help solve that problem? Do I have a hobby or some business experience that makes me uniquely qualified to propose credible solutions to this problem in this space? You might find something in the media, a magazine, a newspaper, or on TV, or even the internet that resonates with your experience and hobbies. But again, make sure it intersects with your domain knowledge and passion. Can you provide special discernment that few others can? You might be attending a trade show or an exhibition where you see certain things being done, and maybe you could do it in a different, a better way, and a more unique way. Maybe you're working at a company and you do a survey, or you get a customer complaint which identifies potential problems and maybe other ways of doing something. There are things that are consistent customer problems. Brainstorm with your colleagues or customers. They are good ways to come up with ideas. So how can you tell if your idea is good? Once you have a basic idea, it's usually more a diamond in the rough and hopefully not a lump of coal. Rarely does it show up as a miner's cart full of gold or the Hope Diamond. You need to turn your basic idea into an actionable business plan, and even then, there is usually additional refinement over time. So what is a good idea? A good idea is something that someone is willing to pay for if you have a promising business proposition around it. The idea has a unique value proposition. It solves a critical customer problem or pain point. The problem is currently not being solved at all, or it's being solved in a much less efficient or cost-effective way. Ideally, your idea provides some innovation. It adds value. Most importantly, someone is willing to pay for it. In my experience, the best ideas are where entrepreneurs have specialized knowledge combined with passion. If you have specialized knowledge but there's no passion or momentum around it, it's nearly impossible to build a successful business enterprise. There's so many obstacles in the way. There's so much inertia from existing competition that you won't be able to break through that. You need to have a deep-seated passion and belief that you're going to do something that is going to change the world in a positive way. You're going to be able to benefit from that as well as clients reaping the benefits. Without that, I think it's going to be super difficult, if not impossible. So how do you sustain a value proposition? Almost any idea can be copied or duplicated over time with sufficient resources. My experience is that today's competitive advantage becomes the basis of competition over time and usually within 6 to 18 months, even for difficult technical problems. In other words, if you have a feature or product that is different than what's available on the market today, the difference will dissipate over time and you will have to come up with something new or at least some improvements in the original idea. It may no longer be breakthrough innovation, but you need to continue to have evolution of your product or solution to sustain an advantage over time. This is true even if you're doing a good job of protecting your intellectual property. There are two ways to have sustainable value. Either you're in a small and relatively uninteresting niche market with no competition, which probably means that you can't build a big business enterprise around it, or you need to build layers of competitive advantage over time. So what are layers of competitive advantage and how do you build them? In my experience, having a single competitive advantage will not last a very long time, even if you're protecting it with intellectual property. It's what we call a one-trick pony. Of course, you need to have a unique value proposition and you should protect your intellectual property in your initial solution, but you also need to build other commercial things into your solution that creates barriers to entry for the competition. Can you closely marry your product to your customers' products to build in switching cost? In a lot of different solutions and companies that I've had, there were software components or other products that were married with our customer software, thus building in switching cost. Also, if customers get used to the usage model of your product and new training is required to bring another competitor on board, that's a switching cost. Even if the competitor comes in with something that is similar in terms of quality and price and performance, if it's significantly costly for the customer to move from your solution to theirs, it gives you time to work through things and make sure that you have a sustained advantage there. It's important to have a strong roadmap on follow-on products and to leverage off the earlier products. The development cost for a customer isn't as high because you're leveraging off existing solutions. In the tech world, we call this backward compatibility, but it can apply to other types of products as well. Then there are things like service and quality. These things can be subtle, but there are ways to quantify them, and great companies do this. You should build relationships even in times of difficulty. Microsoft founder Bill Gates talks about the best learning opportunities with customers being when they have a problem with your product. In my experience, it's the way you do a great job solving problems in this environment where you build trust and credibility with customers. If you solve problems quickly, you should always get back to your customers in a timely fashion. Consistently provide superior price performance. All of these things build upon themselves and give you a stronger position to keep the business over time. Now let's talk a little bit about the importance of idea refinement. How do you make sure that the idea, if it's a relatively good idea in the beginning, becomes a great idea so that customers really resonate with it? You must refine your idea the same way that crude oil is refined into valuable and useful fuels. In every company I've consulted with and every company that I've worked for, there has been the development of unique products. There's a dialogue that occurs initially with trusted advisors, specialists, and people in your inner circle that you can trust not only to disclose your idea to anyone else, but they will also provide you with unfiltered feedback as to whether they think it's a good or a bad idea. Do they think it could be a good idea if you find it in some way? Having a dialogue with people who know what they're talking about and that you trust and who trust you is very important. The second thing is to gain feedback from expert sources in the market. If you do a lot of industry monitoring in various areas of tech, you need to make sure you're consistently educating yourself about what's out there. Anytime someone approaches me about an angel investment, the first thing I do is look at the internet after the meeting. What competitive solutions are out there today? What are the analysts saying about things? Maybe it's an opportunity where it's not well known or well understood. If you have ways of looking over the horizon, maybe the industry experts aren't talking about it yet, but there's still evidence that this could be a big market based on the problem being solved in a unique way, and no one else is doing it. Then as you get more into formal ways of getting feedback, you can do customer surveys. If you have an online business, you can do things like SurveyMonkey. Even if you don't get feedback from a large number of people and only from, say, 5 or 10 people, that may not be statistically significant, but the quality of the responses could be incredibly valuable to refining your idea. There's both qualitative feedback and quantitative feedback. Both are important. If you're looking for something more statistically significant, you need to get about 100 responses to something depending upon the overall market size. Even if you get a few responses and they're high quality in terms of the feedback, that can be extremely helpful regardless. If you have the time and money to do focus groups and you're in a customer-facing market, that's also incredibly valuable in order to get qualitative feedback. Again, it's not necessarily going to give you something statistically significant, but if you get the right people in a room discussing things, that can provide you some great information. Ultimately, you need to make incremental refinements and improvements to your idea until it gets to the point where it really has a lot of value. Unfortunately, I've seen circumstances in companies that I've been associated with and have made investments in where they get too caught up in the cycle. Especially engineers sometimes want to make things perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be better than everything else that's out there. That's something to keep in mind. You need to continue to make incremental refinements to have a sustainable competitive advantage. If you're in a business where you can develop prototypes, it's worth doing that as well. Then you can get something into customers' hands. In a lot of my previous companies, there were chip businesses. It was hard to do chip prototypes, but you could do system level prototypes. You could do demonstrations. Times when you're actually able to show customers what you're doing and how the solution works and get feedback around that are extremely valuable. In a book that I recently read, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, he talks about the minimum viable product. This is beyond a prototype. This is a product that you can sell, but it has the highest return on investment versus risk. This is something where you can really test at least a portion of the market. This deals with so-called lean startup ideas. Many of the ideas have been around for decades, but I think Reese has a way of packaging these ideas that are easily digestible by today's entrepreneurs. The idea of refining things, having a minimum viable prototype or product that you can get out in front of customers, that can potentially commercialize, does have incredible value. Here's a quote from the book that I really like. A minimum viable product is a version of the new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about the customers with the least effort. Anytime that you can get real-time, high-quality feedback from customers, you potentially increase the value of the product and improve your unique value proposition. In summary, a good entrepreneurial process consists of listening to customers, refining your idea and roadmap over time, and a process of iteration. If you enjoy this, I'd love you to register for one of my free webinars where I talk some more in detail about how to build successful startups. I've run 3 startup companies myself and I'm now on my 4th. I love working with entrepreneurs, and this is what I do full time now. You can also register for my monthly newsletter in the QuestFusion website where I give strategic guidance to startups and entrepreneurs. This is Patrick Henry, CEO of QuestFusion, with the real deal, what matters.